We spent the first part of this series exploring the problems with gravitational theory. Now you're going to see how making one small change will present a perspective that corrects all of these problems, the basis of which was first explained in Gary's book, Debunking General Relativity. By altering the thought that space is empty as Einstein's prerequisite requires, there was a second, less radical option to fix Newton's shortfall in 1915. As we mentioned in episode 2 of this series, there are multiple subatomic particles within what is thought of as empty space. These particles should not be considered invisible. They need to be thought of as hidden. Dark matter is not an accurate term to describe the particles populating space. The concept of the ether contributing to how gravity works was the closest description to how these particles function. The elusive graviton from quantum mechanics, as Gary sees it, is the subatomic particle that is within matter and also populating space. This creates and extends the attractive force Newton saw. This particle produces the mirror image of general relativity. This perspective can be viewed as a composite, since it uses a part of quantum mechanics to reinforce Newton's views, and it is the mirror image of general relativity. The fact that the graviton is very weak seems to be why it is hard to identify within the Hadron Collider. Here are 4 characteristics of gravitons that make them function according to this perspective. Number 1. The graviton is within matter surrounding the nucleus, polarized and attracted to it. Number 2. There are free gravitons in space having this same polarizing attraction, which allows this force to be conducted between masses. 1 and 2 are the way quantum mechanics theorized how the gravitons function. Number 3. At low density, this particle allows light to pass freely. At increased density, it deflects passing light, and at high density, it blocks light. This aspect is the cause of lensing under the correct conditions. Number 4. A buildup of free gravitons accumulating in front of a mass in motion acts to accelerate that motion, as opposed to it hindering that motion. This logical characteristic explains the details of how orbits correctly function. The actions of gravitational attraction need to be viewed in at least 3 different scales. This theory provides a unified understanding that clarifies how gravity transitions through all scales without any supplemental forces. Again, this theory provides a unified understanding that clarifies how gravity transitions through all scales without any supplemental forces. There is a change somewhere between the smallest molecular scale and the much larger solar system scale. Between these 2 scales, gravitational attraction escalates to become true gravity. This is due to pressure. Observations have shown that there is a marked difference between the solar system scale and the much larger galactic scale. Also, there are probably immense changes on the unseen side of what is known as the event horizon. General relativity is accurate only for gravity in our solar system, but is insufficient to explain any other scale. Starting at the smallest scale with these depictions, A through D, they represent an atom free in space. Shown A, B, and C with a membrane surrounding them to give you an idea of the area. If you look at depiction A, there's an empty space between the dot, which represents the nucleus, and the imaginary membrane. This area is where the electron field exists. Depiction B is how Gary's perspective through his research sees a single atom. The gravitons occupy the same area as the electron field. Just as in current theory, the electrons in the electron field are proportional to the number of protons and neutrons in the nucleus. The gravitons are also proportional to the protons and neutron within that atom. If an atom is scaled up to the size of a sports stadium, the nucleus would be the size of a baseball. If the electron field is the only thing surrounding this ball, how is light deflected and/or blocked from passing through this stadium? Every transformer and conductor connected to the power grid has an electric field surrounding it. And these fields do not deflect light in any way. The gravitons are responsible for altering light's path. The gravitons are attracted to and polarized toward the nucleus. At the correct density, the gravitons deflect photons. Depiction C shows the atom free in space with free gravitons clinging to it. The number of free gravitons that adhere to each atom is proportional to the number of gravitons in that atom. This natural balance is important because these free gravitons will always attempt to resume this balance. These free gravitons attaching to this atom come from the free graviton reservoir in space. This allows the polarization and attraction to extend out much further. Depiction D is how an atom actually exists with no membrane. If the reservoir of free gravitons is moving due to the influence of a larger mass, the free gravitons attaching to an atom will bond it to that reservoir. That atom will move along with the reservoir. This is how the nebula instantly keeps pace with the galaxy, which we talked about in episode 4. Going through this process of with and without a membrane allows you to clearly see the added free gravitons. If you imagine back before the first star was developed, there was enough hydrogen along with some helium atoms to average 1 atom for every cubic meter of space. Under today's theory, that atom has enough energy to curve space-time. That curvature is not enough to bring these atoms together when they are as widely dispersed as 1 atom per every cubic meter. Science currently claims that static electricity must be supplementing this situation to make it work. A static charge may further enhance the attraction on occasion, but it cannot be relied upon for the coalescing of the entire universe. The added reach of these free gravitons solves the shortfall of general relativity at the molecular scale without the need of a supplemental force. As matter forms a large mass, it creates pressure which limits the space for the free gravitons clinging to the atoms. At the point a mass is large enough to form itself into a sphere, its pressure has displaced enough free gravitons from around its matter to upset the natural balance of free gravitons surrounding each atom. These exiled free gravitons surround the mass, increasing the reservoir's density close to that mass and extending its polarity over a much greater distance. It is this displacement of free gravitons that initiates gravity. There has not been any explanation for this transition until now. Gravitational attraction becomes true gravity and establishes a gravitational field. Again, it is this displacement of free gravitons that initiates gravity. There has not been any explanation for this transition until now. Gravitational attraction becomes true gravity and establishes a gravitational field. This perspective of how free gravitons function at the molecular scale is a new concept. This concept will become imperative when we take this perspective up to the galactic scale later in this series.